Welcome to another episode live to Cake, Crumbs, and Cheese. We are live. I'm Detravius Bethia, and I'm with who I'm with. Who I'm with?
That Bert Dumas, that Dumas boy, part of the Dumas crew.
Yeah, part of them Doomas boys. Watch them Doomas boys. And we are two good-looking brothers with two different perspectives on life, shooting at
I know we can't
always
say it now.
laughing and
I
mincing
think
those
I ain't ever
words.
gonna get over that.
Speaking our minds, sharing what we know with you. We can't guarantee you agree with everything we say, but you'll always leave with the trail of cake, crumbs leading you right to the cheese. And today we have a special guest. We are
Yeah,
stepping into the political arena. Our esteemed guest will help guide our minds and share some insight on the role of technology has been playing in politics and its implications for our democracy and how our rights as citizens for our democracy and our rights as citizens of this nation. I can read, folks. I'm reading my. I stumbled a little bit. He has
yeah.
been behind the scenes stirring the political pot in Washington, D.C. for close to 20 years. He's probably walked most of the neighborhoods in D.C. and knocked on the doors too. And he has played an integral role in ushering in a new generation of politicians who I ain't gonna even try to pronounce that on the air. Always do again, people we need to the office to fight the good fight. Let's welcome the good brother Howard Bison, Mr. Lamar Harrell. What's going on, brother?
Thank you for having me. What's going on, y'all? What's going on, D? What's going on, Bert?
Chilling, chilling, chilling.
So quickly, give us a quick background so to let the people know who you be
Who you
out
be?
in these streets.
Man,
Yeah.
I got to be honest. Y'all reached out. I said, y'all sure you got the right person? Uh, yeah. So for the past 20 years or so, I've been involved in campaigns both locally, regionally, nationally. I worked here in Washington D.C. on mayoral and council races. I've worked on congressional races in Maryland and Virginia, as well as did some stuff for DC for Obama back in 2008. So this is just kind of a life passion, and I've since transitioned into entrepreneurship and taking a lot of the skills that I've learned in politics into marketing and bringing folks together, specifically folks who have a harder time getting a bite at the apple.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, what
Got
got you into politics?
You know what? That's a great question. Growing up, I I grew up where I grew up poor in the hood, and when you see when you're exposed to people who have more, like we would go and stay with family members, and they had houses, right? They had food, right? The kids went to like different schools. You notice these differences. And as a kid, I would always ask myself, like, why is that the case? Like, what is different between what they've got going on and what's different between what I've got going on? And my grandfather was huge into like CNN and C-SPAN and all of that. So I started learning about decision makers and what have you. And when I was at Howard, I was originally a pre-med major until I got to Death Valley. They call it Death Valley for a reason. That's
Yes, they
it.
do.
that's where your pre-med dreams go to die.
Go straight to death.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
As
what's
mine did. As a matter of fact, I went there and paid my respects last week.
so what's
Uh,
what's Death Valley for those that don't know? Because I don't know what's
so
Death
Death
Valley.
Valley, if you've never been on Howard's campus,
Uh,
Howard sits on a hilltop. They call it the hilltop, right?
uh,
And then the entire School of Sciences is like down
Down in the
down.
valley.
You've got to go down like it's almost like 2 stories down a
yeah.
hill in this valley.
I know what you're
Uh,
talking about now, but keep painting the picture. I didn't know what you was referring to. I know what
right.
you're talking
So
about.
you walk down these steep 2 flights of steps down into this valley, and it's physics, it's chemistry, it's biology, it's all the sciences, and it's rough,
It is
for
real
anybody
rough.
who wants to paint the picture. that HBCUs are not rigorous, or don't have rigorous programming. I'm gonna let you know right now that is far from the truth. As a matter of fact, the
Mm.
rumor was one of the teachers that we got had flunked her own son.
Oh, the
So
biology teacher. Yes.
yeah, yes.
I
See,
had her. I had her at
it
8
wasn't just
a.m. in
me.
the morning. And as a matter of fact, I had her class 9/11.
Mm.
I
Wow.
came out of the class to like a bunch of missed calls, and I'm like, what is going on? Who has died? Why are y'all calling? Somebody, I'm in class for once, at
For what?
for once, I'm at this class. I'm trying to pay attention. This lady didn't failing people home blood. Jeez, man, what's
Right,
going
left and right,
Yeah.
on? Well,
left
I
and
mean, did you always envision yourself as a politician?
no, no. As a matter of fact, I think it was a number of things that just kind of happened that kind of pushed it into place. So one, it was how I grew up. So the things that I paid attention to were different than the things my friends were paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I was struggling in genetics and pre med, I was also out at the Supreme Court, protesting the 2000 presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's happening. That's happening in the time. And then I think the thing that kind of pushed me into that space was I used to watch the Chris Rock show on HBO. I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys remember. Chris Rock
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
which I thought was dope. And he had Jesse Jackson Jr. on there. Jesse Jackson Jr. was talking about his
Alrighty.
That's live for you,
That's
folks.
live
That's
for
live
you. That's
for you.
live for you. That's what it is.
I got the Roomba in here somewhere. The thing gets stuck under like different places,
Yeah.
and you
Oh
don't know
yeah.
where to see it for weeks.
Nah, we ain't rich like that, man. We don't have
Yeah, I
Roombas. You
don't
know what I'm
have that. I
saying?
don't have that,
That's
bro.
why I
See,
got
yeah,
kids. I
yeah,
got.
yeah, yeah. That's why I see now. You know what I mean? He just stunning on us,
You know what
man.
I'm saying? You ain't got to come on here and embarrass us like this. Gee.
No,
You
where are you from? My
It
bad.
was a gift. I'm
know?
from I'm from LA. I'm from LA. I grew up in LA. And typically when somebody tell you they from LA, they're from like Culver City or some place way out.
Okay.
But I talked about we grew up poor. We
Yeah.
moved almost every year. I had been in like 13 different schools by the time I got to high school. So
Damn,
almost
I thought
every
I was
city in
bad.
LA I've lived in.
I thought I was bad. I went to 5K through 8 schools. You went to
Wow.
30. Damn. Yeah, yeah.
Hey man, either way,
Yeah.
it's still a lot of transition, you know.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
Yeah.
let me ask you this: you went to five different schools. Do you often think about and attribute something about your current personality to that?
That's a great question. I have been thinking about this in the last 2 or 3 years. I think for me it was I used to be very sick as a kid too. So
Mm,
I had asthma real bad. So I was in and out of the hospital a lot. And missing a lot of days. So for me, it was more so I think it forced me to navigate the world, like to learn how to make friends that I don't think a lot of people have to force themselves to make friends and deal with different environments. Um, and it also I think it made me more self-reliant because I knew like, at any given time it could be we up and out to
yep,
another school.
yep, exactly,
and
exactly.
We out
and I
this.
was I used to be mad at my mom for a long time because when she moved me, so I was supposed to get skipped, and she was like, "I'm not going to skip you because I want you to stay with your friends." Man, we done moved. I went to 5 different schools after that, 4 different schools after she said
Like you made me miss the opportunity to get skipped.
skip. Yeah, she was like, I went to 4 different schools after that. So I think it definitely helped me like with being more outgoing because I think I'm an introvert, but I force myself to be an extrovert. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the
He
same way.
said,
I'm the same way.
You got qualities of all of them, or both of them, I should say. We
yeah,
all do. We all do. We just enjoy our quiet time. We can be quiet.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, the
So,
question
so
is the question on whether or not you're an introvert or extrovert is when you go into a large crowd. Does it give you energy? Are you energized by it, or does it drain you?
I think it depends on the crowd and why I'm there.
Hmm.
But generally speaking, I hate crowds though. Yeah, generally speaking. Yeah. But if it's like a room and I feel like I gotta work, quote unquote, work the room, I can turn it on and just work the room. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I don't necessarily feel I feel like I could be in my element when I do that. Like so I gotta if I know I gotta work the room, I could definitely work the room.
Mm-hmm. That's what's up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But tell us how LA influenced your moving LA because LA got a lot of gangs too. So tell us how that all influenced your political perspective. Matter of fact, tell
Uh,
us why it pushed you to want to become a doctor, and tell us how you think it affected your political perspective.
those are all great questions. Can I curse?
I mean, we
Yeah,
live,
we live, so yeah, go ahead.
so
Okay, good. I just I want to know how real I can be.
I
Now
mean, we
Um,
be 100%
usually
real.
pretty real. So I
You're pretty
mean,
real.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
being living in some of the poorest and roughest parts of the city, parts of Compton, Watts, Jordan Downs, Nickerson Gardens, gang activity. We had a house at one point. My mom lived with her boyfriend's family. So we all lived in this house with in the projects, in Avalon Gardens, and one of the kids in the house had been game banging. He didn't want to be in it anymore. And at the time, this is in the '80s. Like the only way that you was gonna get out
was to get out,
was is somebody
go out.
killed you.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
want out, we got to kill you, right?
Got you,
So
got
it
you.
was always known that they were going to shoot up the house. So we were living in this house with the knowledge that at some point that we don't know about, they were going to shoot up the house. And it just so happened that the day that they actually did it, my brother and I, my older brother, um, were away at our grandparents' house. So they shot up the house, and the bed that my brother and I slept in was closest to the outside wall, riddled with
Mm,
bullets. Right. So
wow.
to answer your question, how did growing up in LA impact my decision? My mindset was get the fuck out of LA
Mm,
as
Mm-hmm.
quick as possible. Get the fuck
mm,
out of LA, and figure out how you can have an impact in the world. As it relates to science and pre med, I've always had the mindset that I want to help people. Everything that I've ever done has been about helping people. Whether I was in politics, it was trying to help empower people to have a better life. Elect people who are making better decisions. For the community. With science or with pre med, it was I wanted to study genetics. I wanted to see what kind of ways could we change things and handle a lot of the genetic problems that we have specifically in the Black community. And then even in my entrepreneurial life, I work specifically with Black entrepreneurs who have a hard time getting their products to market. So everything that I've done has always been about how can I help people, either get some traction or have better just better opportunities, and realize the power that they have themselves.
Well, so that's a great segue. Just before we forget, we definitely want to suggest *Sapiens*. Mr. Lamont made sure that we know this was a great book by Yuval Noah Harari. And *Sapiens* retells the history of our species from a fresh perspective. It focuses on key processes that shaped humankind and the world around it. I mean, we talk in the creation of money systems, the spread of religion, and the rise of the nation state. I mean, how the author believes capitalism is like the most successful religion ever invented. It's kind of crazy. And it touches on like the advent of agriculture and the treatment of animals in our modern day agricultural system. And again, how the author thinks that that's probably the worst crime in history. But, check out the book. It takes a true multidisciplinary approach, bridging the gaps between history and biology, philosophy, and economics. So it's a real good pick. Check it out. Again, it's our guest, Mr. Lamont Harrell's suggestion for the day. Thank you, my brother. We and our audience, thank you for that. So appreciate that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I just
definitely.
just yeah, just to let y'all know, that's one of the few books that I've purchased twice. So I have the hard copy, and
Yeah.
Hey.
I have the audio version of it.
Yes. Same
Okay.
here,
So
man.
Okay.
Same
yeah,
here.
Okay.
yep,
The thing that I love about that book is it really pulls back the veil of of humanity, right?
yep,
Mm-hmm.
We tend to work and operate through the systems that we created to have civilization, right?
hmm
But there are so many times that we see people operating outside of the agreements, right? And
hmm
I think those are the problems that we come across because we're teaching our kids. I remember Killer Mike saying this. He's talking to a bunch of old people and he's rapping and cussing and talking about bitches and hoes and afterwards he explains it and he says that song was about how we are constantly telling our kids to be good people, keep their noses clean, and stay on the straight and narrow path. Whereas we see people who don't do that, who end up becoming successful, or they're taking advantage of people, they're hurting people, and there may be little to no consequences for that.
hmm
And I think
What song is
one
that? What song is that?
I don't know, man. I
Uh,
saw I was following this TikTok video,
okay,
and he had posted it. So I imagine it was on one of the shows that he was
gotcha.
producing.
Okay.
But the book talks about the history of humankind from when we became humans. So it doesn't
Yeah.
just talk about things from the perspective of our civilization and our laws that we create, what you shouldn't do, and all that kind of stuff. It talks about what we've historically done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How humans have murdered other humans, like
Other
the type
humans.
of
Yep.
humans that we are right now. There were a bunch of other humans
Other
out there, and we
humans.
wiped
Yeah.
them out
Yep. Yep.
because
Mm-hmm.
And
that's how we did it. So if you have that, if you understand what humans are capable of, then I think it allows you to operate on on both sides, right? So you're not surprised when somebody is getting ready to step outside of those bounds, which we saw in the last presidential election. We have laws that we set up. We've got the peaceful transition of power, right? We've got all we've got ballot counting with the electoral college, and everybody knows how this stuff works. We do it every 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
but we saw somebody trying to pervert that situation, and this is somebody who attempts to live outside of the laws because that's where he can thrive and gain the most for himself and his ilk.
Well, so that's a great segue, but how do you think uh us being in like this day and age, right? So we call, I guess, this the age of information, or like the
Hmm.
digital age. How is that dynamic changing DC's power structure?
You know what? I think that's a great question, and I I I want to change the premise a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In that is I think it's less about DC's power structure and more about the country's political base, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, from a fundamental level, what social media has done, as is it's siloed us and has separated us based on our ideologies, right, and our
Mm-hmm.
identity, right? Black people will tend to want to connect with black people White people want to connect with white people, Asian, Latino, so on and so forth, right? Gay, straight, um, religious, not religious, evangelical. Um, what are your views on gays? Or the LGBTQ community? What are your views on abortion? Right now we can see it. Before, if if I worked at a bank, and little old white lady next to me named Marjorie works at the bank. All I know is this lady is nice and sweet, and she's great at work, and she brings me crumpets, right, for
Mhm.
lunchtime. I love Marjorie. But now,
Yeah.
in this day and age,
He
me and
said
Marjorie
crumpets.
are friends on Facebook, and I see all the
Yeah.
off-color shit she says,
Yeah.
Be
about
like, Marjorie,
how,
that little.
you know, now Marjorie is talking about how all lives matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie is talking about how Trump was really good for the economy. Marjorie is talking about how the COVID vaccination is just, the government's conspiracy to pump something or some, 5G, whatever. Me and Marjorie ain't cool no more.
Yeah, Marjorie, you can keep them
Yeah.
crumpets.
Right,
Crumpets.
right. You
For
can keep them crumpets, because I also saw that the cat was in the kitchen with you while you was
Exactly.
cooking the crumpets,
Exactly. Licking the
right?
butter. I'm good. I'm good.
So now, because
Yo,
we've
he said the cat was looking at butter.
right, lapping it up. But now, because as because of social media, and how prevalent and superfluous it is, right? It permeates every fabric of our social connections now, right?
So,
To the fact that Marjorie is even on Facebook
yeah,
tells you something, right?
that's true.
So even they're affected. So now I've disconnected from Marjorie. Me and
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie, we're not cool anymore. We don't, after I leave that job, we don't stay connected. I'm not talking to her. We're not friends on Facebook anymore. So I'm talking more to people who have like interests. And as a
Wow.
result of that, um, we're not learning from each other. We're experiencing less forms of tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
which is extremely important in what America is supposed to be, which is a melting pot,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need to understand tolerance, and the differences of people, so that we can make bridges and keep making bridges and make those bridges better. But social media keeps us separate, and so what that does is, now you've got a voting base in the country, or you've got multiple voting bases that are fractured, and
Mm-hmm.
factionized. And then what our politicians will do is, now they know how to weaponize these ideologies.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting that you got that take. Well, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish answering the question, and I'll hop in real quick.
yeah, so they weaponize these ideologies, and now, as opposed to being leaders and saying, hold on, I know you're scared, I know you're frustrated about this, but uh these are the facts, this is the research, this is what's real, this is not what's real. When I think about, JFK wrote a book called, Profiles in Courage, where he points out these different politicians, and how they stand up to their bases on a particular issue, and that particular issue is the one that brings down their career. You know, so when he's proven and pointed out that, uh, when you do take those stances in a position of power, then you're essentially calling for your own demise, right? Um, and historically, it's always been the case that people will do whatever it is that they got to do to stay in power. But I feel like we're in a space now where it's the base that's scared. It's the
Mm-hmm.
base that's scary. It's the base that's disconnected. And I think that those that are in power have a responsibility to try and right the ship.
Well, so
Right.
go ahead, D. I was gonna.
Now, I was just saying that's an interesting take because I'm a big fan of Robert Greene. Like I read all his books too. And building on Robert Greene and sapiens, as we just discussed. Like when I look at this today's climate, I know like I think social media to me is helping humans be more humans, be more sapiens. They dig it into they sapienness, if that I don't think that's the word. Like so for example, like we've always been separated. It just social media helps us keep the separation, if that makes sense. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
always I take it to like the gun and the weapons of mass destructions. We've always killed each other. We're just finding
Mm-hmm.
more ways to kill each other. And if you read Sapiens, to plug your book, you would realize that we've always been who we are. I just think technology helps us be more of that. I don't know if that's necessarily a good or bad thing, or just a thing that because I don't think humans gonna make it long term anyway. So,
I was just watching this thing on YouTube yesterday where it was a guy who I think it was on a show, I Tell Your Secret or Tell Us Your Secret or something like that. It was from like the 1930s, I think, right?
uh,
But the guy was the last living witness to Abraham Lincoln's assassination.
oh wow.
And so, this guy was 96 at the time, when he was
Uh-huh.
telling the story, but he was 5 the assassination. And he said, the only thing that he could think about was, is the man who jumped off the balcony, the man who fell from the balcony, is he okay? Because, that's the kid's point of view. He didn't know anything, yeah, they
Yeah.
saw the president up there, his aunt, I think he was with his aunt and like his nanny essentially, right? And they were like, "Oh, look, that's the president up there," and he was waving. He's like, he looked stern. He was a tall guy. He said, "But that's all," And so I say all that to say, um, America's still very young because I mean, this man's grandparents was like they were around during the founding fathers.
Yeah.
So so it's and this is not that long ago. I mean, it's still the 1900s, and early 1900s, not like the shade that these young folk be trying to say we was born in 1900s, you know what I'm saying? But like
Yeah, yeah,
the true
yeah. I get you.
1900s.
True, I get you.
And so, I mean, yeah, we're real young, man, and I don't think we're gonna last, like you said, too much
I
longer
don't think
either.
I don't think human beings gonna make it long term. But one, we created weapons of mass destruction, and like I don't think one day them joints gonna go off somehow, some way. We're gonna use it. And somebody gonna respond to the other person using it. Like we didn't come up with no weapons just to have them in our closet in plastic or
Exactly,
like
gathering dust.
gathering dust like on your grandmother's mattress when you put the plastic
Put
on.
the
Don't sit on them
plastic on
chairs.
there. Yes,
Yeah, don't
don't
sit
go
on
in the
them
living
chairs. Them
room.
chairs for the show. Now we don't got them joints just for show. Like eventually they're gonna go off.
Yeah. I think you make a very good point, and I think what when we're talking about social media and how, like you said, that it allows us to become more human, more sapient, which I think is right. But um, I also think that we're working backwards from the goals that we've created for ourselves, right? We create a society that has law and order so that we can try and make sure that as a race we survive, right? And I think back to my kids love Zootopia, right? Here are people, not people, they're animals. In this fictitious world, the prey and the predators live together in harmony. Uh, I don't know what the fuck the predators eat, but apparently it's not the
What
predator,
hold on, what's this?
right?
Zootopia? It's a cartoon?
Yeah,
Zootopia, yeah, it's
Zootopia.
a movie.
Zootopia.
Hmm.
Movie. Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. I know, I'm familiar with that.
and
Okay.
the whole premise is, well, what happens when somebody starts
Pitting everybody against each other.
sitting is it is what's the word I'm trying to say, is acting outside of the agreed upon laws,
Uh-huh.
right? So now are the predators are now actually eating the prey,
Hmm.
and now there's this mass hysteria, and I think that's where we are. If what we're doing is becoming more sapient, then civilization is devolving. The people who are famous now are not famous for the type of things people were famous for 30 years ago, right?
Hmm.
I remember growing up. if you were famous, you played a sport, you were an actor or an actress, right? You were a politician, you were an artist, a dancer. You did something that
You
made
had
you
talent.
significant, right?
Mhm.
Whereas now, the people are famous just for showing their ass all day.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know,
that brings up a good point. Asking, like, do you think we are watching, um, like the maturation of a new political system? Like we have what's the types of monarchy and democracy and things like that. Like, do you think this one would be like, I don't know,
you know what?
digitalism?
I'll be flat out honest with you. I don't. I've got two answers. One is I don't think so
Mm-hmm.
because it takes a lot to form governments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
we've had a two-party system forever, and just like England has had the monarchy forever, right? It takes a lot to change that, and I don't think that we're in that space. But one of the things that the author talks about in *Sapiens* is his belief in how um, we used to care about civilization as a whole. Like, if that kid is hungry, then we want to feed that kid. If children are hungry, we want to feed children, right? And how we're moving away from that, and that's becoming less important. As a matter of fact, people are becoming less important, and what's becoming more important is how people feel about things.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Their
think that
behaviors.
right, and I think that that space is going to change who we elect, how we elect them, and what type of things they're going to be able to push forward on behalf of the constituents.
Mm-hmm.
And that we'll just have to see. I mean, if you pay attention to Trump's base, um, if you pay attention to Trump's base, it's a mixed bag. It's you got a bag full of crazy, and then you got people who are just trying to they want the tax breaks and everything else. But if we're siloing folks, and folks are more concerned about how they feel and their identity politics, then they're raising kids in this space too, and those kids are growing up, and those kids are going to have their own political ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So to long story short, I don't think that our political structure is going to change, but I do think our political culture is going to change.
So, I mean, with that being said, I mean, clearly we've gone from, like a broadcast based politics, where everything is on TV, or newspapers, things like that, to more engagement based politics, like you said, identity politics.
Mhm.
Um, it, the strategies that campaigns and candidates use, how is that how's that changing? I mean, I know you said that we're siloing people, but how is that inherently changing the whole landscape of politics,
Mm.
being more engagement based versus, just sharing the message to the general public?
Uh, I want to make sure that I understand your question. How how is social media and the culture that stems from it? How is that um, how is that changing? Is it what either politics or the political base?
So I guess I'm talking more so with like a candidate's intention, right? I know
Hmm.
we can't imply any or understand anyone's intention, right? It's all personal. But
Yeah.
when you are vying for a seat somewhere in whatever part of the system, you have to reach the people.
Yep.
And now that back in the day, pre social media, people would stand on their soapbox on the stool and preach and broadcast to anyone who would listen, right?
Yeah.
If your TV was on, you are actually hearing what these candidates have to say, whether you agree with them or their viewpoint or not. Now, because we are driven by followers and fans and behaviors and methodologies and things like that, and essentially engagement,
Hmm.
how has that reframed the whole campaign process? How has it
Yeah.
reframed
Okay.
candidates, approach to the seat?
Here's what I would say. There's an old saying that all politics is local, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
You say all politics what?
is local.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, social media is not having a huge impact in local municipal politics,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those people are going to town halls, they're going door to door, they're having personal interactions, and I don't see that changing much as it relates to social media, because they're also not talking about big issues. They're talking about the more intimate issues that impact people in a specific location. Now,
Mm-hmm.
national politics is completely different. You can't reach everybody in the country. You can't knock on every door. You
Mm-hmm.
couldn't knock on enough doors
Mm-hmm.
in a presidential campaign, right? But what I think is happening, which is interesting, is now because of not just social media, but artificial intelligence and metadata, right? You can now go out and, like, before, politicians would go and they would go, well, what demographics are following me? What demographics do I appeal towards, right? And the demographics were, you know, white, black, Asian, right? Your race, your age, your sex. Now we've got so much more information. I wish I could remember the name of this documentary. It was on Netflix, where this consulting group went on Facebook, and they got and extrapolated all this data about their followers, right? So they were able to target not just um, Republican voters versus Democratic voters. They were able to target those who believed in abortion versus those or choice, who were pro-choice versus those who weren't. Those who were religious versus those who weren't. Those who were likely to share videos versus those who weren't. And they can literally narrow it down and then feed those people precisely what they wanted to, whether it was real or not real. And they would send them fake videos about, like, oh, this candidate did this thing, which didn't happen, didn't occur. There was no facts of it whatsoever. But just because somebody said it and put it, and they had enough people in there, what happened is the culture, their identity culture, wrapped around it and would take it as fact. And they would
Mm-hmm.
keep doing that and keep doing that during this last election.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of like what is going to happen, um, I can only tell you what I hope happens. What I hope happens is that we create better laws to prevent false evidence being presented as fact, right? I hope that we can hold news news organizations accountable for the stories that they present, right? And if something is going to consider themselves entertainment, then there should be no news whatsoever if
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to be based in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I think is going to happen is we're going to have a population of people who will continually be misled, not do their own research, not have a strong system for validating facts, and anything could happen at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
But I don't think political structures are going to be changing that fast or that rapidly. It really comes down to the laws that are going to be created as a result of what we've seen and what we already know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the important thing. What's happening is, there's this battle between whether or not businesses should be considered people or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should businesses have the same legal rights as a human being? Meaning, um, you know, anything that I'm entitled to as a human, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. If this business also has the same thing, which means they can also contribute to political organizations, right? In the same way that I can, but they've got more assets and resources. So if that's the case,
And
and
taxed
businesses and
differently.
humans, then
Yes, yep,
that is
yep.
going to they're going to influence politics greatly, right? There's I believe there's a law which is, I think it's Glass Steagall, something like that, that kind of put that into motion. So there are battles, and there have been battles over things like that. These are fundamental ways of thinking and considering things that have long term effects and impacts. And if we can't handle, if we can't elect people that are willing to put people first, put human beings first, put um, uh, human beings' welfare, health care, all those kind of things first, then we're continually going to be in a place where businesses are going to get the upper hand, and we're going to start seeing more of this. And I think that is where we'll start seeing changes to political structures.
Mm. All right, so we got to switch gears a little bit. We're coming up on an hour. I think we passed an hour. So
No.
the
We
show
know.
is
We good. We good.
yeah, crumbs and cheese, right? So
We have
how
42
so
minutes.
42 minutes. So I
Yeah.
think oh yeah, we didn't record. We didn't start on time. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
You know,
the show is about
PPT.
getting, giving the folks the cakes, the crumbs, and getting them to the cheese. So I think the election before last, so that's Trump versus Hillary versus Clinton, there was hundreds of billions of dollars of money spent in campaigns. How do we, the audience, get into, because that money is going to be spent regardless, right? How do we get a piece of that cheese? What are some strategies? So I know you do marketing, political strategizing, right? I know you're not cheap,
Mhm.
so that I know that's a lane. If you want to talk about that lane specifically, that's cool, or whatever. However you want to answer the question, how do we get a part of that cheese?
That's a great question. Like I mentioned before, all politics is local, right?
Hmm.
Um, if you've got a business and you've got services, you know, campaigns have needs. That's where, and you're right. Campaigning um, is where the money comes out, right? It starts pouring, like the faucet just opens up. Um, Versus, government, there's so many things that the federal government or city governments or state governments will do to make sure that everything is in line and that this money is going where it needs to go. It's not going, this campaigns, because it's so quick and finite, it doesn't have that same space. So what I would say is, if you have a business, uh, start building relationships, because that's what it boils down to, right? Um, I run for office. I need a website. Now, how is it am I more likely to go out and try and find somebody that does websites, or I'm going to look for somebody that I know that does websites?
Mm.
More times than not, I'm going to look to somebody that I know. So it's a matter of building those relationships, getting politically active, right? Volunteering. Office opens up and they need somebody to answer phones. Go and answer phones. They need somebody out there knocking on doors. Go knock on doors. Um, Go to the fundraisers. Develop those relationships so that when people are kicking off campaigns, you're not Johnny on the scene. They know you. You've got a
Hmm.
reputation. They know that this is what you do, and they've known that you've done this for some time. Because the reality is there are players who have been eating at this table for a long time, for a
Hmm.
long time, and I've seen campaigns go against each other, and seen some of the same consultants or consulting companies on the back end that was on the last election, that was on the last election, that was on the last election, right? And they're so tied in that not only are they on the political side, but they're also on the governing side, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So get involved.
Yeah.
Get
And
involved. You know,
I think a point a lot of people miss too is that whether a candidate wins or loses, this is what they do. They're still involved in politics some way, shape, in some way,
mm-hmm,
shape, or form. So the
mm-hmm.
relationships that you build don't end when the campaign ends.
Not at all.
Not at
Not
all.
at
Yeah.
all. And one thing you mentioned, we want to help people get to the cheese. This is something that is maybe not necessarily beneficial for those who are thinking about this from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but maybe so. But specifically, people who are like, how do I get involved in a way that can be impactful, right?
Mhm.
So I was an organizer for a number of years, and in organizing, we have this saying: uh, power can be defined as either organized money or organized people, right?
Mm.
So if you notice,
Repeat that. Repeat that one. Repeat that
I
one,
know,
man.
right?
I'm gonna
That's a
steal that.
soundbite right there. Say that again.
Yeah.
power is defined as either organized money or organized people. And I say this to folks all the time. If you don't have money, you definitely got friends and family. You definitely have neighbors. So, for people who want to get involved and make a difference and throw some weight around and have politicians paying attention to what they're saying, coming out to them and looking at their businesses or looking at their communities and their neighborhoods, you know, organize your people, organize, chat and choose, meet and greets, have your group, have people like we get together for brunch all the time. Get your brunch crew together and go, we're going to talk to this person about this issue that we want to focus on. And I think that's something that we don't teach. We don't teach our children in school. I wasn't taught that in school, but I know for a fact that that's what works. Political parties, all they are organized people, right? Special interest group, organized people around a particular idea,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so it's true and it works. And you walk into any elected official's office, and you're just Joe Schmo off the street and say, "Hey man, I want this stoplight changed." Look, Joe,
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
to
yeah.
meet
Put your
you.
suggestion in the
You
box.
can't, but you walk in, you say, "Hey, I'm Joe Schmo. I'm the president of the, I don't know, uh, DC Coalition of Concerned Parents, where we have over 17,000 voting members, right? Or even, depending on how small the city is, 170 voting members, right?
Yeah.
Now he's got to engage with you. He's got to have a conversation because those are votes.
Mm-hmm.
So organizing is extremely important. It's something that any and everybody could do. And I explain it to people this way. And Bert, I know you can get with this D. I don't know if you have little ones, but
Mm.
when you have kids and you go over to somebody's house, the kids want to stay, right? Now the kids know if they ask you, can they stay? What you gonna say? No, we got to go home.
No.
What
Yeah.
do? They start asking the friends, hey, ask your mom,
Yeah.
ask my
Yeah.
mom. And then they start rallying and organizing together. And now, before you know it, they've worked the whole thing out. We'll
Mm-hmm.
stay here at Auntie Tasha. Shout out to Tasha and Jadal. We're going to stay here at Auntie
Shout
Tasha
out.
and Jadal. And then they can come pick us up. And then their kids can come and stay over the next day. And they work the whole thing out. And at that point, what do we do? We say, all right, if they don't have an issue with it, I don't have an issue with it. But
Mhm.
we all have the capacity to do this, and it's not that hard.
This
So
is true.
I got a funny story.
Go ahead.
So my daughter got RIP to Ed Walsh, right? My daughter, we went to Ed Walsh, so we had this Facebook group. I mean, not Facebook group, a group chat. And Ed we used to always communicate. And one of the people in the group chat used to always say, "Let's go to Ed's house to watch TV. Let's go what Ed's house to watch TV." I'm saying, "Yo, bro, like, yo, you can't invite us to Ed's house. Ed is on the chat. If he want us to come through, he needs to invite us, right?" But Ed used to always be like, "Nah, y'all come through, y'all come through." So it was always like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." because he didn't initiate it, right? It's kind of sort of he was reacting to it. So finally went to Ed's house. Yo, Ed's house is crazy. I mean, I ain't gonna put all. He ended up passing away. I actually went to his house for the first time on Saturday. He passed away on that Monday or week. It was like a
Wow.
week to the day or something like that. Yeah, his house was. He had the movie theater. It was crazy. And my daughter was
Wow.
with me, and my daughter was like playing with his daughter, and they did the same thing that you just said, like, "Oh, Dad, can we stay here?" And I was like, "Yo, I want to stay here too."
And it's
Like,
like,
Right, right.
you ain't got to talk me into it.
but maybe I
That's
want to move with
that's where
it.
you hit him with. So Ed, you want me to order some pizzas?
Exactly. I can make a quick run to the liquor store or something, you know what I'm saying?
Ed's house is crazy, but it's funny that because the kids worked it out. But when they asked me, like, yeah, I want to stay this trip. This children got the movie theater with the snacks and everything. And
Not the snacks.
the
That's the
gummy
dream
bears,
right
all the
there.
good snacks too. The gummy bears.
Yeah, the gummy
Yeah,
bears.
yeah. He had the
Man,
popcorn, everything. He had the whole full blown movie theater. Rest in peace, Ed Boss. He was
Hilarious.
a good dude,
rest
man.
in peace, Ed.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Rest in power, brother. Well, so Lamont, with the, like you were saying, with all the people, or all the sources of information, and or places we get information from and sent to us, whether real or fake, or excuse me, real or alternative. You know, what what can we do about being proactive, and I guess, what can we do to kind of like remain properly informed
Mm.
during campaign season and off, just making sure we're getting not misinformation but the right information.
You know what? I think that is a great question, and I I would argue that I would not be the best person to ask that question, because I think that as we explore identity politics and tribalism, right? Um, there are different things that people need to feel secure in the information that they're receiving.
Hmm.
The one thing that I would say is, one,
Uh,
do your own research. Like, don't just take something that somebody tells you at face value. Don't just read the headline, right? Do your own research. Um, read read the article.
Hmm.
Don't just read the headline. So do your own research. Read the article.
Yeah, because
Um,
clickbait is real.
it is. It is. And I get it a lot of times, especially when it comes to the celebrity. LeBron James said that Tiffany Haddish had this.
Mm.
Oh, what? I need,
What happened?
and turns out he was like, oh yeah, I really liked her in that movie. Like that. So what? But so the other thing is, figure out and test your own uh, um, your own method of what's real or what's not real, right? So in the science world, they've got what they call peer review articles.
Hmm.
You write an article and you got a PhD in something, right? You send it out to other PhDs in something, and
Oh.
and they review it and they give their thoughts. So if it passes the muster, then they publish it, right? And that's where a lot of our academic research comes from.
Hmm.
Uh, we need to have our own kind of like, how do we determine whether or not this is like falsified information.
Hmm.
We need some system for that. We need something beyond a sniff test. So for me, what it is does this logically make sense? Two, are there other credible sources out there that are sharing similar information?
Hmm.
Right. And three, consider the alternative. And I think that that's one of the things that we struggle with, going back to social media and siloing, is we don't talk to people that are on the other side of an issue, and we don't consider the alternative. So do your own research. Don't just take things for face value. Read the whole thing. You know, test your structure in terms of what works and what doesn't work, and consider the alternative. And hopefully, after you've done those things, then you can be as informed as possible. Because if you haven't considered the alternative, then you're definitely just going in one direction.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, we definitely thank you for joining us on the chat today. We have left you guys with lots of cake crumbs, leading you to that cheese, whether it be entrepreneurial or just getting your folk into office. So I think I'm good. D, we keep losing D. Hold on.
D trying to sneak over to Ed's house.
Exactly. Squat, Hold on, let's see. There you go. He coming. There you go. You there?
Yeah, I was breaking up, so
no stress.
I heard some of it. Yeah,
no, you
I don't
good.
know how
You
much.
good.
Yeah, I don't know how much. Yeah, how much time we got left, Bert? I don't know how much time we got.
We closing it up. I was just about to ask you if you had anything else you wanted to add.
So I'm let you sign off because I'm breaking up, man.
Wait,
I got you.
I want to point out. I see you got that boardwalk back there. I didn't notice it before, but I just peeped it. That's a Monopoly boardwalk joint, right?
Yeah.
That's dope.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. Everything that's well, you can't see my entire office, obviously, but that's the conversation piece because most people think boardwalk is the best property to get on Monopoly, and it's not. So I use that as a teaching lesson. I'm an educator at heart, brother.
have you read Will's autobiography?
We talked about it in one of our last episodes.
Yeah.
We plan to get to it, but we haven't done it yet.
He talks about that too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. He did. I listened to it. When it first came out. Yeah. I've been trying to get Bert to listen to it, but I
started listening to it. I've been waiting on the wife to finish it, but of course, I have not finished it yet.
Just sneak finish.
I'm going to because I don't have a choice at this point. I'll be like, you could just, I'll listen to it again. We'll start back where we left off.
Just to be clear, Halima, that was a joke. That was a joke. I was not suggesting that he actually leave you in the listening process.
Okay. I'm gonna.
I'm
glad I missed that one because I heard the wife name come up. I don't want no problems with the wife.
Right. I was just clear. I was clearing things up.
He was cleaning up his mess. He was cleaning up his mess. That's all right. But yeah, again, as always, folks, we are always here sharing what we know, and opinion and all, whether it be right, wrong, a difference. We just here, two good brothers sharing what we know with you guys. So please stay tuned. Check us out every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, whatever it is at the moment. Check us out. Cake, Crumbs, and Cheese right here live, Facebook, YouTube. You see our handles at the bottom. Mr. Harrell has joined us today to talk about politics, but you can always catch him at LA Harrell 27. Anywhere else you want him to check you out, bro?
Yeah, feel free to just go there. I got a bunch of links on my stuff. You can get access to everything.
You got that novel like the Bethea Boys over there.
No, but thank you guys for having me. I love the show. You guys are doing, amazing work. Always thought provoking and pushing the envelope. And it's the kind of stuff that we need. I think we need honest discussion about things going on in the world. So thank you for having me.
Hey,
yeah, thank you for doing the show.
Absolutely. All right, well, fellas, stick around. I'm about to cut the live off. We'll check y'all out later and see y'all next week.